Welcome to the Awesomers.com podcast. If you love to learn, and if you're motivated to expand your mind, and heck, if you desire to break through those traditional paradigms and find your own version of success, you are in the right place. Awesomers around the world are on a journey to improve their lives and the lives of those around them. We believe in paying it forward, and we fundamentally try to live up to the great Zig Ziglar quote, where he said, "You can have everything in your life you want if you help enough other people get what they want." It doesn't matter where you came from, it only matters where you're going. My name is Steve Simonson, and I hope you will join me on this awesomer journey.
If you're launching a new product manufactured in China, you will need professional, high-resolution, Amazon-ready photographs. Because Simmo Global has a team of professionals in China, you will oftentimes receive your listings photographs before your product even leaves the country. This streamlined process will save you the time, money, and energy needed to concentrate on marketing and other creative content strategies before your item is in stock and ready for sale. Visit SimmoGlobal.com to learn more, because a picture should be worth 1,000 keywords.
You are listening to the Awesomers.com podcast, episode number 50. That's episode number 50, everybody. That's kind of like a little milestone. And as always, all you have to do is go to awesomers.com/50 to find all the show notes and details, relevant summaries and transcripts, etc. Now, today my special guest is Simms Jenkins. And Simms is the CEO of Brightwave, which is North America's leading email marketing agency. The award-winning firm specializes in elevating email marketing programs that drive revenue, cut costs, and build relationships. Simms has helped lead the Brightwave marketing team to establishing a world-class client list, including Aflac, ChickfilA, Cox Business, Google, Phillips 66, Porsche, and so many more. The agency has been ranked among the fastest-growing private companies by Inc. magazine for the past 3 years consecutively. That's hard to do, by the way. Simms was also awarded the prestigious Amy Marketer of the Year Award from the American Marketing Association for being the top agency marketer and the Email Marketer of the Year at the Tech Marketing Awards held by the Technology Association of Georgia. Jenkins is regarded as one of the leading experts in the email marketing industry and is regularly cited by the media as such and called upon by the financial community to provide marketing insight and consultation. Simms is also the author of 2 definitive and highly regarded books about email marketing, which we talked about in this episode, including his most recent work called The New Inbox. His first one was called The Truth About Email Marketing, and I found it very instructive back in the day when it first came out. Simms is currently the email marketing best practices columnist for ClickZ, which is one of the largest resources of interactive marketing news and commentary in the world, online or off, by the way. His industry articles have been called one of the top information sources for email marketers. Simms is such a busy guy. He's created other things like emailstatcenter.com, socialstatcenter.com, and those became and have become the leading authorities on email and social media metrics. Prior to finding Brightwave, Simms was the head of the CRM group at Cox Interactive Media. And today, Simms serves on several civic and professional boards, including the Atlanta Families, the Zoo of Atlanta Marketing Board, Fernbank Museum's Corporate Leadership Council, and some other things as well. Simms really does try to give back, and he resides in the Atlanta Buckhead area with his wife and 3 children. Simms is a powerhouse marketeer, a really, really amazing guy leading an amazing agency, and I'm thrilled that he was able to join us today. Welcome back, Awesomers. It's Steve Simonson coming to you again with another episode of the Awesomers.com podcast, and today we have a very special guest, Simms Jenkins. Simms, how are you?
I'm doing well, Steve. Thanks for having me on your show.
Certainly a pleasure, and it's always fun to talk to somebody where I go back a ways, and the audience has had the benefit of hearing your bio read in at the top of the show, but maybe you could tell us where you live now and kind of what takes up your day-to-day activities in your business.
Sure. Steve, I'm based out of Atlanta, Georgia, where I've lived for 20 plus years. And I run Brightwave, which is the leading email and eCRM agency. And as founder and CEO, my day is a little bit all over the place, like a lot of CEOs of growing companies. But I spend a lot of time focused on the growth of the business financial side of the business, and then our team and clients, and making sure that we're all aligned in terms of the vision and where we're headed as a business and where our clients are needing us to really make impacts on their business. So what that looks like over the course of a 10-hour day is a little bit different every day, and that's what keeps it fun and interesting.
Boy, that's for sure. It's definitely can be a wild world in the land of entrepreneurialism, and I'm sure your agency is no exception. Simms, remind me, how long has that thing been going? Because I know that I've used it in the past for a past business I was involved in, and that was long ago. How long have you guys been running?
Yeah, we just celebrated our 15th anniversary, which is kind of really blows my mind to think about all of the blood, sweat, and tears that have happened on that crazy roller coaster ride of 15 years. But we've reinvented the business every couple of years, which is fascinating to see. And but yeah, 15 years, it's a long time, and a long time in where we've been focused on email. A lot of changes, but we're still largely focused on the same area, which has been, I think, a big part of our success.
Well, no doubt about that. And, you guys are obviously very accomplished, and the agency is widely recognized as an expert. As I recall, even, some number of years ago, you even wrote a book about email marketing. Am I right or wrong about that?
Yep, 2 books actually. My first one was about 8 or 9 years ago, called The Truth About Email Marketing, which the Financial Times published. And then 5 years ago, I wrote The New Inbox, which ClickFilA and their parent company published, which was really more of, as the world was really quickly changing, social media, mobile were looming, and there was a big conversation of, are they going to kill email? And I've heard, is email going to die or be killed, countless times over 15 years. But, I think I saw that those channels were going to be so important to email and make them more effective, and vice versa. So I had the desire to really tell my vision of how email fits in this radically changing world. So it was a pretty different book than my first book, which was more on fundamentals and best practices of email, which still are fairly accurate. But yeah, 2 books. I don't have a third one in me, at least right now. So I think I've covered email pretty well for the time being.
I love it. Well, and, it sounds like I'm not the first guy to tell you, but, as I read some of these, websites and the talking heads out there in the internet space, they tell us very clearly that, nobody uses email anymore. Everybody's into messenger bots or, social media or this or that. Is this news to you? I hope I'm not breaking some bad news to you right now.
Well, I mean, like I said, I've been hearing those kind of themes and doomsday news for 15 years, and they're all wrong. Is the world changing and how we communicate? For sure. But email, if anything, is much more ingrained in how people communicate with their preferred brands. Our college-age kids communicating with each other and their parents differently than they did 10 or 20 years ago? Absolutely. But then they get jobs, then they get email addresses, and then they become adults and get emails from their financial service institutions and their favorite brands. And yes, they might also do that through Snapchat or Instagram or other social channels. But email serves a very strong purpose. It's the number one thing that people are doing in terms of, if you look at every hour of media that they're consuming, it's how they interact with their favorite brands. And mobile has just made it much more pervasive of, we're checking email all throughout the day. Maybe it's not it's seen in the same light as it was a few years ago. That's because there's a lot more channels and it's a lot harder to get your email read. But email is still the number one marketing vehicle. If you had one bullet in your gun and need something read, whether it's a new app, a new sale, whatever it may be, email is the best, most effective and cost-effective way to get that message in front of the right audience and accomplish your goal. So I think it spins a good story to talk about everything else, but it is going stronger than ever.
Well, this is really the reason I wanted to bring this up. Is this deserves a little bit of myth busting, if you will, because this, people, again, I've talked about it in other contexts like affiliate marketing or SEO, but, you know, everybody wants to, either for hyperbole's sake or for causing, you know, controversy, or even just, you know, being, flamers, they want to just create a little controversy. And so they stir up these things. But the reality is email's going strong, and those who know how to do it really well, it's going even stronger. I mean, you guys are probably continuing to break new ways of getting things read and getting the inboxes cleared and being on the white lists and so forth. That's what makes you guys specialty, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, it's more about really our client results and what brands are doing. And, you know, the bottom line is what was why email continues to grow and why we're a thriving company 15 years later and absolutely a mature digital channel. It's email works. And, you know, repeatedly, whether it's Wall Street Journal or mainstream media, you know, companies have doubled down on email over the last few years. I think a lot of people like to think of it simplistic of it's either social media or it's email. It's either your mobile app or email. That's, you know, any really strong brand is going to have a well complemented and diverse mix of marketing channels. Your customers are different. There's some customers that are only going to interact with you through the mobile app. There's some that are, you know, want SMS messages 3 times a day. There's others, all they're going to check is email and they're going to read every single email. Others, it might be direct mail plus, you know, an email that really does the job of getting them to, you know, take the special offer, or learn more, whatever it may be. So it's really the right marketing mix. And brands have gotten so much smarter. I mean, I think that's probably the biggest thing that I've seen change in our business is just our clients are so sophisticated in terms of what they're coming to the table with and what they want to accomplish, and their ability to use data. And, you know, they're looking for home runs where it used to be acceptable to kind of, hey, I've got a list. I know I need to, you know, monetize it. I want to send some emails. Now it's, you know, how do you do some really smart things? And, you know, I don't want to leave any dollars on the table. And, you know, most brands are generating, you know, tens of millions of dollars in revenue, if not more, from, you know, their email program. And they've just gotten much smarter and savvier.
Well, and this is really an important point for me to share with the Awesomers out there. If you don't understand that, you know, brands of all sizes, but particularly the big brands, are still continuing to invest in email and making it a part of as Simms talked about, you know, kind of that complement of marketing tactics and strategies that are out there, you're kind of missing the boat. Often, you know, as if we only have to pick one, I'm going to start with email, and then I'll probably go to affiliate, or, you know, kind of move down the line of you know, highest ROI, lowest risk kind of things. But if you have the opportunity to do more than one thing, then it really does work to kind of be wherever your customers want you to be. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely. Yeah. Different stages of the funnel, different, you know, types of customers using the web in different ways. Yeah. It's, you know, it's all about where can you be to make that user experience much more seamless for your customer, and connecting online and off. And there shouldn't be a disconnect. You know, we're finding that it's no longer acceptable for brands to have, you know, world-class customer service when you walk in one of their stores, and then you get one of their emails and you click and it takes you to a page that's not mobile optimized. Like, that's the same as walking in a store and, you know, finding a rude customer service rep. So I think, you know, people are really doing that. You know, digital transformation is what a lot of consulting firms want brands to do, and that's really, they are reinventing their entire business model and making sure that every element is, you know, really has a strong customer experience, and with digital being kind of front and center to that. So yeah, we're, you know, again, dramatic shifts in the way that companies are doing marketing and really valuing their customers and looking at that interaction.
Well, I definitely agree that, you know, if people aren't reacting to the changes, which are, you know, they're constant. I mean, one of the benefits you have of the 15-year perspective, and by the way, 15 years in the internet space is a dinosaur age. So sorry to be breaking some bad news over here, but, you know, that means you guys have been around, you've seen it all. And as you even said in the top of the show, you've had to reinvent the business kind of over and over as these changes have come down. Can you reflect on maybe a couple of the surprises that you guys have had to overcome along the way, one or two that stand out in your mind?
Yeah, well, I think we've had the first phase of the business was very much I had to sell email as a tool, as a channel, as a service, as much as I did Brightwave and myself. I think the early days people were still like, why should I spend money on this internet thing? I'm not sure if it's a fad or whether it's really worth it. So that really kind of helped me understand the value of thought leadership, and at first it was very kind of to help accomplish two things at once: selling email and selling Brightwave and myself as an expert. But that absolutely kind of created a whole new kind of awareness and ability to drive a lot of awareness and interest and reach for a relatively small company. I think being able to realize what you're really good at, and during the initial social media craze 6 years ago, we started doing a little bit of social media for clients that we manage their email program. We said, okay, social media is complementary. We really, we understand what you're trying to do and kind of the brand conversation, and we're going to offer that as a service. And we weren't great at it. I think it was, so new. We saw it as a, land grab, but we weren't great at it in the way we were at email. And it made us really kind of reevaluate. We want to be the best in the world at email services. So we said, let's stop chasing the shiny object like everyone else. We'll have an opinion and a point of view on it, but we don't want to manage social media programs. We want to be, the email critical business partner for, large brands and growing brands. So kind of making, reconfirmation of who we were and are we okay with it. That was really an important part. And then I think, like a lot of entrepreneurs, at some point you're either going to grow or you're going to kind of stay the same, and maybe it's a very comfortable existence. And the desire for me and our team, and was thankfully organic and client driven, was, hey, let's go along for this growth ride that our clients want more from us. We can handle it. The market is saying that there's a increased demand of services that we're already providing and could go deeper on. So took the risk of moving from a really comfortable, stable business that maybe didn't have a ton of risk, and then where you're tripling in a few year period, then there's a lot more risk, there's a lot more reward on that. But you have to really be willing to kind of go all in to rock the boat on a comfortable entrepreneur gig to go for that bigger growth ride. And that's been, I've had to reinvent myself during that period as well as the business. And that's been really interesting and certainly worth it.
Yeah, it's a really good time for people to kind of reflect for themselves, what's important to them, right? If you decide to double down and get into that growth mode, there's a cost to it, right? Obviously, it sounds like, and I'll dive into this maybe a little further with Simms, but when he says he has to reinvent himself, that means he probably had to add on some additional skills and learn how to cope with the growth and develop systems and people. Is that fair to say, Simms?
Absolutely, you're spot on, and that's not easy, particularly for control freak entrepreneurs that are used to doing it themselves because it's cheaper / better, or the only way that but that's not a scalable thing. And I think there was a hard kind of awakening for me moving from, at one point I was an email marketer that happened to run an agency, and then at one point I was running the agency and was less of an email marketer. That was uncomfortable for me for a little bit. And then when you move to a growth-oriented mode, you've got to just be really comfortable delegating and hiring and empowering awesome people and let them do their thing, which, again, takes some time and a comfort level for most entrepreneurs to let go. That's usually one of the things I'm sure you can agree is hardest for people like us that, know what success looks like and know how to get there and want to do it all themselves and do it quickly.
Well, without a doubt, myself included, are kind of entrepreneurs in general, the hard wiring is often to be great technicians, right? And Simms reflected on this idea that, hey, I was a great email marketer. I just happened to throw an agency on top to try to, make a business out of it. And that's often how these ideas come about, right? I'm really good at this, so let's make it into something bigger. The transition to go from great technician into great leader is very difficult. And for a lot of us, we struggle, not just giving up the control, but just even the skills of how do you interface with people? You know, how do you, to empower them, as you described earlier. I've made so many mistakes and you know, continue to learn today on how to manage and help people grow. It's a very tough business, and it's quite a different thing than learning the actual technical skill of executing whatever that happens to be. In your case, email marketing. Is that, you agree with that?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's definitely a journey. So Simms, let's just back up just for a minute, if you don't mind. And actually, before we dive into your origin story, just for a little bit, I want to take a quick break, and we'll be right back after this, Awesomers.
Hey, Amazon Marketplace professionals, this is Parsimony ERP, and we get one question over and over. Can you please tell me exactly what Parsimony does? Well, we'll try, but this is only a 30-second spot, so we're going to have to hurry. Connect to your Seller Central account and pull all the new orders. Enter the orders with all customer data. Enter all of the Amazon fees and charges. Store them at the item level. Generate profit and loss reports at the SKU level. Automatically generate income statements. Handle multiple companies. Handle multiple brands. Handle multiple currencies. Facilitate budgets and forecasts. Store all customer interactions in a sophisticated CRM system. Manage your supply chain. Project and task management. Maintain an audit log. Hey, you get it. That's Parsimony, PARSIMONY.com. Parsimony.com. We've got that.
Okay, we're back again, everybody. And Simms, I always like to get a sense, because you're a successful entrepreneur. You know, your agency is responsible for big national brands like, you know, Equifax or Mattress Firm, Aflac, ChickfilA. These ChickfilA, is that how they call it? What's their proper name?
Yep, you're right. Yep, ChickfilA.
ChickfilA, yeah. They don't really have that many of them out here in Washington. I think there's just one, but these are big brands. Everybody knows these names. And when I think of, you know, the growth of you guys as an agency to where you're now the preeminent supplier for these guys, it makes me really proud. I'm excited for you. How do you feel about it?
Oh, likewise. Yeah. And yeah, it's been a journey to work with some of the world's best brands, and you know, it hasn't always been a smooth one. But yeah, there's a tremendous amount of pride, and, you know, candidly, there's a lot of pressure that comes along with, you know, you want the win, and the world's best brands hire you, and then sometimes there's there's a great deal of responsibility that I personally feel, and that our agency needs to feel, to, you know, and trust. You know, we're communicating with their customers, which is the number one asset for all these customers. So it's a really big deal.
Yeah, I appreciate the fact that you guys have that sense of responsibility. And I always pick that up in the old days when I was involved with the company where we were a client of yours. It was very clear that not just you as the leader, but the team that you had on the job, they were, you know, taking seriously the responsibilities and the execution of the strategies and so on. And obviously that's why you guys have been successful. But let's go back in time a little bit and tell us, where were you born?
Baltimore, Maryland.
All right. So East Coast, Northeast even. Were your parents entrepreneurial, or what did they do?
No, yeah, my mom was a teacher. My dad was a financial advisor and worked for Morgan Stanley for 30 plus years. So, you know, pretty traditional, conservative careers. My grandfather had the entrepreneurial streak and started a few companies and did some different things. So he was kind of the influence in our family, but it wasn't something certainly that was on my radar, even, you know, leading up to right when Brightway was created. Of, I'm the type of person that I want to have a business, my own business. That is not something that I was thinking about in college or out of college, or, you know, it was, I wish that I had that maybe drive or vision, but I didn't.
Fascinating. So obviously you went to college. How did you like that experience?
Oh, couldn't get enough of it. You could plug me back in college right now. So yeah, I went to a liberal arts school called Denison University in Ohio, a really small school, and it was a great experience. You know, really smart kids from all over the country. And, you know, it was a school that I was very involved with, vice president of student government, did a lot of different things, you know, kind of a big fish in a small pond. But I was a history major, which really just meant I was unemployed when I graduated with no idea of what I wanted to do. So
I was wondering what history majors do. So now I know. So what was your first job coming out of university, given that it probably wasn't doing something with history?
Yeah, I actually got a job with the Olympic Committee in Atlanta, which is what brought me here, in 1996, which was just kind of lucky timing that the Olympics were going on that summer, and had some connections and got a job with the Olympic Committee. And, it was more a way to get to somewhere that to me seemed really exciting, less about the job, but it got me on an initial track of sports marketing, which certainly is one of those jobs that sounds cooler than it is, particularly if you're a 22-year-old newly graduated college kid with a lack of direction. So it was Atlanta post Olympics. There was just so much going on. Still a lot of excitement and a lot of sports marketing related energy and opportunities that came out of that Olympics.
Yeah, that was quite a time for sure. How about, was there a particular defining moment or moments that, from that time, the university and your first job with the Olympic Committee to now where you own your own successful big business, that a defining moment that put you on the road to where you are today?
I think it's probably more situation and kind of, how do you act in times of crisis, to put it, more bluntly. I was a newly married guy, and it was right after the dot-com era, bubble had crashed and 9/11 had happened. I got laid off from my, job that otherwise I loved at Cox, running the customer relationship management group. They were shutting a part of our business down, and I needed to make money. I was a newly married guy with a mortgage, and the job market was terrible. So I did what most people have to do when there's not a lot of choices. I hustled and started doing some consulting, and took some small side gigs helping people kind of with digital and with email and search, and realized that email was the number one thing that worked. And it was a big focus of what I did at Cox. It was the number one driver of site traffic. We spent a ton of money, and there was just a huge void of like, how do you do email successfully? Everyone kind of understood intuitively how it worked, but there was, how do I set up the technology, or how do I do it the right way? And so there was just a big moment of, I wasn't, didn't have a brilliant business plan, but my back was against the wall and I had to do something. And that's kind of what drove me. So it's not necessarily a very glamorous creation story, but it's, certainly, I think what, I'm sure a lot of athletes come out of, like, my best game was when we were down 3-1 and we had to win. And that's sort of my view of, I could either rise to the challenge or be defeated at an early age.
Well, definitely the back against the wall is a genesis for many, many businesses for sure. And I actually really appreciate that. Has there been any big lesson that you have learned along the journey so far that you kind of want to share with maybe some of those who are still up and coming in this world?
Gosh, yes. A lot of them, and I know one of them is probably really good to document those lessons, as well as the kind of historical wins and moments, because, whether it's 3 years or 15, I know, and I've spoken to a lot of entrepreneurs that have kind of similar businesses. They wish they almost had like pictures of their first office, or they wish that they celebrated that early client win. Part of the entrepreneur mindset is, okay, what's next? Versus, savoring important milestones. And there's certainly been plenty over the last 15 years or so. I think when I look back at like critical moments where the business could have, really suffered or taken a big step back, and almost all of those times were filled with lots of really good impact by people other than myself. So I think the biggest lesson that I continue to learn is like, really hiring awesome people. And I know it's almost cliched for an entrepreneur, but it's really hard for a lot of entrepreneurs to do, is hire almost, people that are better than you is what I found to be the case a lot of ways of, hire awesome people and really let them do their thing. Tell them what, what's the vision of what you're trying to create, as a company and the role, and then let them do it. And, that's been, I think, something that sometimes you learn the hard way when you try to do it all, or maybe you hire the cheapest person or the most convenient versus the best. But I'm certainly, as we've grown, such a big believer in, hiring the best talent makes you so exponentially better as an organization. And, we've really been lucky to have a great team and a lot of key people that have grown in different parts of our phases of our growth, which is really hard. Most entrepreneur organizations, you might have that key first employee that doesn't make it to the second phase of the company, and certainly not when you're a more mature organization. And we've had, Brent Rosengren, who you worked with, our chief client officer, has been here almost 13 years, and he's reinvented himself at every stage of the company. And that's just almost unheard of, that you have an early employee that still is essential to success, 80 employees later, which is really cool to see.
That really is amazing. And Brent is a brilliant guy. But it really is an evolution. As the organization changes and you go from, 2 to 5 to 10 to all the way up to 80, there are extraordinary differences, and it can be quite difficult. And even some of the early folks in the organization are like, hey, this isn't like it used to be, right? It doesn't feel the same. And so that can be a very tumultuous time. And so I really appreciate that lesson learned being shared, that, not just do you hire great people, but, in fact, you have to prepare that evolution. And you try to bring everybody along who is willing to kind of invest in themselves and reinvent themselves as you go, because it is not the same, unequivocally not the same as it used to be, right?
Correct.
Yeah. How about this? Because, you've been through a lot. Was there ever a time, whether it's in your business or otherwise, that you just kind of wanted to give up and kind of go back to the 9 to 5 world and just kind of check out of the entrepreneurial business? Anything like that ever occur to you?
No, not once. Gosh, in fact, if you told me my business, I had to give it up and start over tomorrow, that would be incredibly painful and difficult. And I think it's such a ongoing roller coaster ride that just is fulfilling on so many different levels that no, I have never thought of throwing in the towel.
Yeah, it's funny because no matter how you feel as that roller coaster ride you described goes, it's almost incomprehensible to me, for example, no matter the darkest times I can be in, for me to consider, well, yeah, I'll just go get a 9 to 5 job. It would be very difficult for me. That said, of course, there's other times where it's like, yeah, maybe I should pivot a little bit because this is a lot of work, or it's not working or whatever. How about, do you have any tools as a leader, as a CEO, that you use maybe on a day-to-day basis that you find either indispensable or highly valuable to your day-to-day work?
Well, outside of really smart people, I think I'm a big LinkedIn proponent. I think it's incredible, not only ways for someone like you and I that crossed paths a while ago to stay in touch. It's a great educational tool. It's really good from a business development and marketing standpoint. I think a lot of people really underutilize it, or maybe view it as, it's like Facebook for work and don't see the value out of it. I think that's a big kind of miss. There's so many good resources, whether they're podcasts or, Twitter is one of those rabbit holes I try not to go down too deep, because it can just, you can go in a lot of different directions, and next thing you know, you spend 3 hours. But you can really read the mind of a lot of really smart people. And it's, certainly seeing how Elon Musk and Donald Trump use Twitter just shows you that it's not, again, just sort of the siloed third tier messaging thing anymore. It's, it's a way to completely see what very prominent people are thinking almost in real time. So I use a lot of, kind of social media recon to read about whether it's competitors or just people that are really smart, and I want to know what they're thinking about.
Sure. No, that makes perfect sense to me. I do also agree that both the opportunity to have kind of the spotlight into the mind of other people, whether it's the Elon Musk of the world or, anybody else, just to be able to have a little spotlight, directly from them is a very unique thing that Twitter delivers. And LinkedIn is quite underutilized and can be a very good conduit to maintain relationships over the years. We're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, I'm going to ask you to get out your crystal ball and tell me the future. So get that ready. We'll be right back after this.
Catalyst 88 was developed to help entrepreneurs achieve their short and long-term goals in e-commerce markets by utilizing the power of shared entrepreneurial wisdom. Entrepreneurship is nothing if not lessons to be learned. Learn from others. Learn from us. I guarantee that we will learn from you. Visit catalyst88.com because your success is our success. Giddy up.
Okay, everybody, we're back again. Steve Simonson here, awesomers.com podcast, joined by Simms Jenkins. And Simms and I have done business way back in the day, and their agency has just continued to blow up. He's a really bright guy and a thought leader in the space of not just email, but kind of the general customer journey. And so much about digital marketing is about that. And so I'm privileged to have you on the show today. Thank you for joining us, Simms. I do want to ask you, though, to get out your crystal ball and tell us in 5 years, what do you see changing in the digital marketing space or the email space specifically? Whatever you care to pontificate about, give us some thoughts about that future.
Gosh, 5 years is such a long time in our world. I used to write a lot of prediction columns in different publications, and I've gotten away from that because it's so easy to be wrong. I think data is going to continue to be such a big thing, and it's going to be, from a marketer standpoint, a huge asset. People are going to continue to use data in a bigger way, and it's going to become somewhat of a potential liability too. Or, I think some of the backlash of social media companies and Google and how they use data is something that is going to be, top of mind, and it's going to be a CEO level type conversation, not just CIO, CTO, CMO. So I think that's something to really keep an eye on. In my world, I think email is going to continue to be, one of the most important parts of the marketing mix and really the hub of the consumer experience. But there'll probably be 2 or 3 new platforms that people are using to communicate and message with brands and each other. And those probably haven't even been born yet. And I think that's incredibly fascinating to see, what will come and how will it change. I'm not a believer in that these things will kill one another. It's more, how do you add it to the mix? How will people use it? And then how do you take advantage of it if you're a smart brand? I mean, there's very few brands that are leveraging probably Instagram or Snapchat in a meaningful way, but I guarantee you it's on the radar of every kind of B2C CMO out there. Doesn't mean that you go all in and you kill your search and your email budget to dive into Instagram. But there's a lot of, the boards want to know, how are we taking advantage of, the latest shiny object, for sure.
Without a doubt. Those are, I think, very salient predictions because, things are going to change. And I actually appreciate the fact that, you've predicted that, something or potentially more than one something is going to come along that will continue to help modify this experience that the consumers are having, whether it's, social media, a messenger platform, the evolution of WhatsApp, and even Apple, the Apple messaging system. Obviously, Facebook messaging is already highly being moved into for marketing, but Apple has opened up their messaging system for advertisers to start talking directly to people with iPhones now. What's your thoughts about that? How's that going to impact the world, if any, if at all?
I don't know, but it's, there's the big companies, the ones you have to really watch out because they can move kind of the tides faster than others. But yeah, I think anything Apple does, anything Google does, you have to really pay attention to. They've also struck out on some pretty big things too. So it's not necessarily, oh my gosh, they're launching this, therefore the world's changing. But you certainly want to make sure that you're aware of the kind of the currents there.
So if I read between the lines, you're saying Google Plus is the next big thing. Did I get it right?
Never say never, but yes, I think that Google Plus maybe wasn't one of the home runs that some people thought would happen.
Yeah, it is fascinating to see. And, we could go into all kinds of, the hits and misses from all the biggest and best brands along the way. And that's probably a good lesson for customers out there that, when something doesn't work, you just kind of keep going. You try the next thing, you pivot, you do whatever you got to do. And big brands know that, and they carry on with life. Simms, are there any final words of wisdom you care to leave with the Awesomers out there listening? Many of these folks are maybe not quite as far along as you have, 15 years of experience and 80 plus employees and dealing with world-class brands. So they might, appreciate a little wisdom from somebody like yourself. What would you share with them?
Yeah, well, I guess my focus of being somebody that's bootstrapped and hasn't raised money, I would say avoid, the gravitational pull that our media sometimes brings us to, where only the real success stories are the companies that have raised hundreds of millions of dollars or sold their companies for billions of dollars. If you got a small niche idea that's going to make an impact in some ways and they're going to be real customers out of it, who cares if you're going to sell it, whether you're going to take out credit cards to get it going, go for it and focus on really what your business problem solves. And less on some of, I think, the sexy stuff that I know I paid attention to when I was 24. And luckily, the world changed before I got to start my company. But I thought it was, the successful formula was basically, you raise a couple $100 million and then you sell your company for billions of dollars. And it's almost like those are the only details that matter. And every entrepreneur knows it's so hard. But the small kind of slow growth stories are really what makes up America, and don't get too focused on, the home runs out there that, most businesses take years to happen. And if you can turn it into a couple million of dollars with little capital, then you've got yourself a great business and it's something worth your time. It's not just the ones that need to go raise, a ton of money. And I think some of those businesses get overshadowed and people gravitate towards the shinier things.
Oh boy, I think that's really good advice. There's businesses of all kinds and all sizes that can make a huge impact in the lives of entrepreneurs and all the people around that entrepreneurial ecosystem, right? The people who work there, the people who are doing gigs for that. So there's so much opportunity. And I think that's really, really wise advice. Thank you, Simms, for joining us today. I really appreciate your time and taking I know a busy CEO schedule is hard to find the time, but really appreciate you jumping on here with us today.
Thanks, Steve. I really enjoyed it. And thanks again for having me on.
Always a pleasure to talk to you. Brightwave.com, we'll have all the links and a couple of the cool things that I saw on brightwave.com. We'll put those links in the show notes to everybody so that everybody can kind of get out there and see some examples of some of the email campaigns they've done. Really exciting stuff. And Awesomers, we'll be right back after this.
Empower. The name says it all. Connecting e-commerce entrepreneurs with great people, ideas, systems, and the services needed to stay business dynamic and to grow. Empowery is a network, a cooperative venture of tools and resources to make you better at what you do, because we love what you do. We are you. Visit empowery.com to learn more.
All right, so my apologies, a little bit of the audio in and outs that happened there, and our apologies, we just couldn't get a good internet connection, but it was such a good opportunity to just get a little flavor of what Simms does and what he has done in his life. A really impressive entrepreneur and somebody who's built this craft, this practice of email marketing into a very large and substantial agency. And I personally, in one of my past companies, have used his services, and I found his team to be very talented. Not only were they talented and had all the skills that we needed, but they often would take the time to explain things and show us things that we wouldn't have otherwise understood. And I tell you, email marketing is not just as simple as sending an email, right? If your server's on, the bad list, the naughty list, so to speak, your emails are not even going to get through. Maybe your emails are being tagged automatically by Google and being thrown into the promotions tab, which is like like an invisible land. It's almost as bad as a spam box. There's so much to email marketing, including the deliverability, including writing good copy and getting people to take action, and including just the basic idea of creating and fostering relationships. Don't forget, email marketing is alive and well. And although there's other channels you can use and consider to be part of your marketing, don't forget that email is absolutely as important today as it's ever been. So again, this was episode number 50 of the Awesomers.com podcast series. And just go to awesomers.com/50 to get any links and relevant show notes and details that are related to this particular episode. Well, we've done it again, everybody. We have another episode of the Awesomers podcast ready for the world. Thank you for joining us, and we hope that you've enjoyed our program today. Now's a good time to take a moment to subscribe, like, and share this podcast. Heck, you could even leave a review if you wanted. Awesomers around you will appreciate your help. It's only with your participation and sharing that we'll be able to achieve our goals. Our success is literally in your hands. Thank you again for joining us. We are at your service. Find out more about me, Steve Simonson, our guest, team, and all the other Awesomers involved at awesomers.com. Thank you again.
Awesomers.com